The dynasty in the making, or dynasty already complete. The Tampa Bay Lightning are one of the best teams in the NHL and have been for the last 5 years, specifically the last two, with two back-to-back Stanley Cup wins. Tampa goes for the three-peat this year, the first three-peat since the New York Islanders way back in the day. That's more than 40 years ago. So can the Tampa Bay Lightning get done what the Pittsburgh Penguins, Chicago Blackhawks, and LA Kings didn't, and that's win 3 back-to-back Stanley Cups, and can they cement themselves as the best team of the last 20 years? We're going to talk about all the reasons the Tampa Bay Lightning will win the Stanley Cup and all the reasons they may not win the Stanley Cup. So let's go, Bolts fans. This video series on our channel is brought to you by BetUS. We use BetUS's odds and odds makers to help us rank our teams in this video series. Look, if you're going to invest millions of dollars in odds makers, actuaries, and mathematical data science in order to go ahead and rank the NHL, who are we to tell Vegas or any of these folks that they're wrong in $1 billion a year business? And if you want to go ahead and be right or beat the odds makers, sponsor us by going down below and clicking the link if you're over the age of majority, heading over to betus.com to get your 125% playoff bonus to go ahead and beat the odds makers and pick your favorite team to win the Stanley Cup or daily NHL betting. First thing we start with is the Tampa Bay Lightning ranking according to odds makers. We head over to betus.com. We take a look at the betting odds on the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're ranked and tied at number 4. They're actually tied with the Toronto Maple Leafs at plus 1,000. That means bet $1. Go ahead, get $100 back. Bet $100, get $1,000 back for the Tampa Bay Lightning win the cup. I myself personally have the Tampa Bay Lightning smashed on BetUS. $50, $500 payback. I believe in the Lightning, but why don't I give you all the reasons they're going to win the cup? And hey, Leafs Nation fans and haters out there, why don't I give you all the reasons the Tampa Bay Lightning aren't going to win the cup? Reason number 1 is the best roster in the NHL. Hard stop. Rosters are depth charts, lines aren't fully present or in order. The source, frozenpool.dobbersports.com or dailyfaceoff.com. Both are the same. Number 2, rankings. We use wins above replacement, known as WAR. WAR comprises goals, assists, power play points, PK points, defense, shots, and more. It is an all-encompassing stat. Source is evolvinghockey.com. Player classifications are my choice. Franchise, elite, top line, top 6, middle 6, third line, bottom 6, fourth line, enforcer, depth in that order. Color grading is based on classification and rank. Gold is overperforming, white is performing as expected, and red is underperforming or dust. When we take a look at this roster, it's just gold, 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 baby. I love gold. Well, Brayden Point and Steven Stamkos are both elite. Even though Point isn't having the best year of Point's career, Point is still an absolute monster and game breaker. And what makes these guys so good is their ability to play defense and offense. The back check and the physicality of the Tampa Bay Lightning led by these two guys is massive. How about Mr. 18 million over the cap Kucherov himself? Absolutely a franchise winger. Why is he gold if he's ranked number 76, you say? Because it's Kuch, baby. There is no way I am putting him white when Kucherov shows up and the playoffs start. Kucherov's a big-time player that makes big-time plays in big-time games. Not too bad for such a little guy. Hagel was the prize of the trade deadline, in my opinion. Hagel's a top 6 young future cornerstone of the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's playing in the top 6 next to Steven Stamkos and Alex Killorn. Although he's not having the world's best year, I'm not going to put him red, even though he is ranked 205, because Killorn is a true top 6. Hey, if you got a little bit of weakness, it's on the left side, but there really is no weakness when you have Palat and Killorn in your top 6. Looking at the third line, this is the best third line in the NHL. Cirelli, Perry, and Colton. Hey, look, this is a depth chart. I get it. Rosters changes. All lines can move. Subject to change. Yada, yada, yada. Guy who watches too much Bolts. Comment down below. Tell me why it's wrong. But anyways, the depth chart, Colton, Cirelli, and Perry in the top 9 for sure. Perry's a steal. I don't know why anybody doesn't want to pay this guy. He's a top 6 player all day who only overperforms, and he takes $1 million deals. Ridiculous. Hopefully he gets another cup this year. Cirelli and Colton. Colton's a superstar in the making as well too. These guys just find players. Maroon, Bellemare, and Paul. Look, Maroon is going for his 4th Stanley Cup in a row. That is gangbusters. Unbelievable. And the fact that they have top 6 guys and third line guys playing on their 4th line, this is a cheat code. You couldn't do better than this team if you made an all-star team. Well, okay, slightly better, but they would absolutely compete with an NHL all-star team if you put the Bolts against the best of the rest, especially at forward. Looking at their defense, Victor Hedman's an elite franchise defenseman. It is hard to get the franchise tag from me, but you got two on this team in Kucherov and Hedman. Hedman is amazing. Look, he's arguably number one. Could be Yossi, could be Mikhail. You're splitting hairs at that point. Hedman is amazing. Then you go ahead and look at Sergachev. I think Sergachev is the second best defenseman on this team. McDonagh not having the best of year this year, but he's supposed to anchor that second pairing, and he will. I'm just moving him down the depth chart. Jan Ruda overperforms all the time on the back end, and Foot and Cernak, they're fine. They're absolutely fine. I think the Tampa Bay Lightning defense actually gets a little bit overrated, and it is really bolstered by two players in Sergachev, especially Hedman. The goaltender is what it's all about, though. Vasilevskiy, look, he's a franchise goaltender. There's no question about it. He may be ranked a little bit lower this year, and Tampa Bay as a whole, we're going to discuss it all. They haven't had the best season out there, but are you really going to tell me that Vasilevskiy in the playoffs isn't like Kucherov and that when it starts, he's going to step up? You got to adjust for rankings. I get he's had a mediocre regular season, just like a lot of the guys on the Bolts, but at the end of the day, big-time players, big-time plays, and big-time games, and that's what the Bolts do, right? Brian Elliott is one of the most serviceable backups in the NHL, but he is not going to see the net unless there's an injury. And if there's an injury to Vasilevskiy, that could be the end of the Bolts' chances. Reason number two about why they'll win is the goalie. Let's go ahead and take a look at their save chart here from Hockey Viz. Blue is ice cold, baby. The NHL is scoring at a below average rate all around the net. All Vasilevskiy does is stop pucks. This guy is a monster. I don't care what his ranking is. Vasilevskiy is a top two goalie in the NHL right beside Igor Shesterkin. How about the dominant finish that the Bolts had this year? They absolutely trounced the Leafs. And I know Leafs Nation's going to come back and go, well, we beat them 6-2 the game before. Yeah, sure, whatever. The Tampa Bay Lightning, the scariest piece about them, Leafs Nation, because I know there's a lot of you here, and I just did a video as to why you're going to win the cup too. So check it out if you haven't seen it. But the scary thing about the Bolts is the fact that they just decide to turn it on in the end, and that was a statement game. They outskilled them, they beat them up, they ran over them, and theoretically the Leafs are ranked higher. They also rolled over the NHL's best team in the Panthers, and I put that in quotes because we're talking about the Bolts, baby. They rock over their Florida rivals 8-4. The Bolts are pretty amazing. The Bolts are a dynasty in the making. Like I said, if you don't think these players aren't showing up to be the first players in 40 plus years and put their names the annals of history, annals, you're crazy, because the Bolts and these players want to win 3 back-to-back Stanley Cups. Hey, a boat parade could be in the making for the third time. Team defense is another reason they're going to win. We talked about that defensive core. I said I do think they're slightly overrated, and only overrated in the sense that everybody talks about them like they're the greatest D core in the NHL. They're amazing. They are, and they have one of the best. But when you take a look at the stats, it's easy to see why people say those comments, isn't it? It is ice cold around the net. You do not get a rebound off Vasilevskiy. You don't get tips off Vasilevskiy. You can't get anywhere near Vasilevskiy. The only place you can score is just outside the slot in the circles. Seems to be he doesn't really like those angles, but the team defense for the Bolts, that chart is just ice cold. And it's important to note that when we talk about things like Corsi, that takes into account all the shots that come towards the net. So they are a top 5 team in the NHL for ensuring that they have the lowest amount of shots. If you have one of the best goalies in the NHL and you ensure he gets a low amount of shots, teams aren't going to score a lot of goals, are they? When you take a look at goals against, they're number 6 with goals against, and we know they had a mediocre year. They actually may end up being number 1 in the playoffs, and they're number 6 in high danger chances against. That means those really, really dangerous chances down low, they don't give up a lot of them. So this is a very stingy defense in front of an elite goaltender. Whew. Scary stuff. Do you like heavy and aggressive hockey? Do you like physicality and beating up your opponents? Do you like fights, hits, and gong shows? That's the Tampa Bay Lightning for you. They're one of the heaviest teams in the NHL going into the playoffs. You can see right here, it is very clear there on the right side of the map. The closer to the right you get, the heavier you are. They're not as heavy as St. Louis, which is the heaviest team out there, but you might be looking at this going, but Ryan, you said they're aggressive and they're in the passive category. Yes, they are, but 1 second. We said when the playoffs start, they turn it up. This is the Tampa Bay Lightning's last 2 playoff runs. I know they lost Blake Coleman and 1 or 2 other guys here, but they added Corey Perry, and Corey Perry's pretty aggressive, don't you think? When the playoffs start, look at their aggressive level over the last 2 playoffs. So they're about as heavy as they were last year. Really nothing much has changed. They were just kind of cruising through the regular season. So if you don't think this team is hyper aggressive, that previous chart is a little bit misleading. This is a hyper aggressive, skilled possibly angry and dangerous team. All right, now let's talk about the reasons they may lose the Stanley Cup. At the end of the day, Tampa's a great team, but there are a lot of great teams in the NHL. Parity is the name of the game in the NHL, and they have to play top 5 teams to win the Stanley Cup. So if Tampa wins it this year, they're the best team in the NHL, not only because they won the Cup, but because they had to beat the hardest teams on the way there. Look, Tampa Bay is ranked number 5. Toronto is ranked number 4. They're actually tied. I know I have Tampa Bay in there, but it's Toronto of what we meant to put in. So they got to get through Toronto in order to do this. Then they're going to have to get through Florida, the number 2 ranked team behind Colorado. Then they're going to have to beat the Metro, and the Metro champion is no slouch. Doesn't matter if it's Pittsburgh, doesn't matter if it's New York, doesn't matter if it's Boston, doesn't matter if it's Carolina. There's question marks all over the Metro, but they're still the champ of the Metro. And then finally, they're likely going to run into the number 1 or number 3 ranked team in Calgary or Colorado. Hey, other things could happen, Western Conference fans, but that's a tough path. Another reason they lose is, frankly, they've had a so-so year. Look, we always talk about rosters and everybody uses past bias. I'm included. Look how good they are. The playoffs are going to start. This team's going to run over everybody. Maybe, maybe not. We got to do both sides of the argument. At the end of the year, they had a so-so year. So when you take a look at it, they were number 12 in Corsi, which means shots towards the net versus shots against your net. And these aren't just shots on net. These are chances that could be blocked or miss the net. These are just throwing pucks towards the net. They're number 12. That's not good. 16 teams make the playoffs, so in the bottom half of Corsi. Corsi is an important stat as to how a team is doing. Better your Corsi, the more chances you have to score, the more chances you have to score, the more goals you get. They are number 8 in goals for. That's right in the middle. So for a team with all that talent, they sure don't score like they should. If anything, that's a little disappointing, and it was a disappointing season for them, but maybe they're tired. Their penalty kill, very important special teams in the playoffs. Their penalty kill and power play are nothing to write home about. Number 12 and number 10 respectively. PK at 81.1. When you're playing the Leafs with the number 1 power play in the league, that could be trouble, and the penalty kill and power play matter in the playoffs. I know the whistle goes away, but they really do matter in the playoffs. So they may lose because at the end of the day, we may be overvaluing this roster. They may be getting a little bit long on the tooth, but hey, don't get too upset, Bolts fans. We just praised the heck out of you earlier. And finally, the final reason they don't win the Stanley Cup. Look, this is a little tongue-in-cheek, but it's because they choose to. Let's think about this. If they're tired and they go, look, I've played enough hockey at this point, and that happens to everybody. I know they want to win 3 cups. I just talked about the other side, but we got to play devil's advocate too. At the end of the day, the boys just may be tired from winning too much, or sometimes the passion goes away. It does happen from time to time. So if they lose the cup, frankly, it's because I think they chose to lose it at this point. This is the best team in the playoffs, in my opinion. Hard stop. And I did put my money where my mouth is. All right, so here's our final list. The best roster in the NHL, in amazing goaltender in Vasilevskiy, dominant finish, dynasty right now, and chance to add to it. Team defense is incredible, and they are heavy and aggressive. These are all the reasons they're going to win the Stanley Cup. If they lose, it's because they're playing top 5 teams, and it's a really hard path. They had a so-so year, so maybe they are on the downswing. Maybe they are tired, and if they lose it, it's frankly because they choose to. If these guys want to show up and play and go balls to the walls, as they say, the Tampa Bay Lightning should be able to get a 3rd Stanley Cup. Don't you think? Let me know if I missed anything down below. Thanks for being here, Bolts fans. Subscribe. We'll follow you all the way to number 3.